Hey gamers, I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and welcome back to another Why This Class is Awesome. I just wanted to say thank you and my greatest apologies for all those who are waiting for this video last Saturday. Some stuff came up, well, whatever, it's just all, what's it called? I can't even think of the word right now. Anyway, I'm not here to overly apologize. I just want to say I'm sorry. It didn't work out. Life happens. I do want to get back onto it though, so I'm going to be releasing this video as soon as I get it done. Plus, I should have another video coming up this following Saturday on schedule as normal. So, no worries. Not going to get too much into it. We're just going to get right into the video. So, today we're going to be talking about, we're getting there. We're getting to the top classes that I think people like to play. I think maybe, some of my videos have been misplaced a little bit, or at least that's what it seems like. There's a lot of things on YouTube that's really hard to tell, but I think I've been pretty accurate up until this point. The one I would say that I know for sure was misplaced on this list from least to most popular was Monk, but my buddy wanted to do a Monk video, so I was like, okay, sure, why not? In fact, we're going to be getting another video, the Barbarian video, this Saturday, and I know Barbarian is also a bit more popular than some of the classes I'll be talking about soon, but nonetheless, the message of these videos is that all the classes are awesome. All the classes are viable, and we're going to get right into that. Today, we're going to be talking about those gifted with natural magics. That's right. We're talking about the Sorcerer today. The Sorcerer is a really amazing class, and there's no class that has as much magical flexibility as the Sorcerer. In fact, if you want a class that's utterly seeping with magic and spells, pick the Sorcerer, because there's no class that gets as many meta magic feats, as well as other ways to change not only the kinds of spells they can cast, but can cast spells from other traditions too, depending on how you set it up. The first feature I want to talk about is actually Sorcerers have the most spell slots of any other caster. Now, Universalist Wizard can essentially get the same number of spell castings per day, but the Sorcerer not only gets that normally just by being any Sorcerer, but also, and sorry, my hair is really not behaving recently. But the Sorcerer is a repertoire caster. So unlike the Wizard, Universalist Wizard, they can cast any of their spells they choose as many times as they want as per the number of spell slots they have. A Wizard has to plant in every spell slot at the beginning of the day with some variant rules that allow them to change them. Personally, I like giving all wizards the ability to swap one of their spells after sitting down for 10 minutes. But that doesn't matter. What it matters is the Sorcerer is really good because they get a lot of spell castings and they're a repertoire caster, meaning that as long as they know the spell, it's in their repertoire, they can use it as long as they have the spell at that spell level. Beyond their spell slots, Sorcerer as a base, as a class, as they level up, gets a lot of things that a lot of other spellcasters get. So, right now I'm going to talk about their blood magics because that's one of their most unique features. And if you don't know, the blood magic is anytime they use a spell that's either a focus spell from their bloodline or a granted spell from their bloodline, they get a certain effect. Now, some of them get a little weird and some of them don't always apply, but the Sorcerer can always target themselves with the bloodline if applicable, or their target, if applicable. And we'll get into that with some of these, but I'm just going to go ahead and name some of my favorites. If you want to see more, go to Archive and Nethys, please, and check out how all the Bloodline Sorcerer get, because Sorcerer has a lot of Bloodlines, and they're going to keep getting more. The Angelic Bloodline, I think, is one that's very overlooked. Its bonus is simple. You or your target get a +1 to all saves for a round. Now, what makes this really good is not only does the Angelic Bloodline give you some amazing spells, like the heal and spiritual weapon spells, which are some of the most commonly used and great spells of the divine spell lists, but because heal can target your allies, you can give them a +1 save to their spell saving throws. Or to all spells, all saving throws. Sorry. It's absolutely amazing. Saving throws are really big in this game, and they can make the biggest difference in a combat. Even just avoiding a crit fail is huge, because a lot of the crit fail spells are potentially game ending for anyone who gets hit by them. So this +1 save is not only really good, but you have a great way of implementing it very frequently. And that's, I think, what I picked with a lot of these Bloodline magics, is just how common and how frequent a lot of these abilities would be. And Angelic is one of them. With Angelic, since it's attached to things like Searing Light, Spiritual Weapon, the heal spell, you're going to have this, or you're going to be able to give this almost every round for most of your combats. It's a really, really good spell. And not only that, but something about Bloodline magics as well, you don't have to cast it at the level that you initially get it. You can cast higher level versions of the spell, if you know them at that higher level, and still get their effect. So the heal spell is always going to be useful, especially with a feat we're going to talk about later. The Draconic Bloodline, and I guess the Worm-blooded Bloodline as well, since they're kind of the same thing with different traditions, are really good. The Draconic one has a really good effect. It either gives you or your target a +1 to AC, which is especially really good if you actually want to do a melee sorcerer build. Sorcerers have about as much HP as a wizard does, but there are some good ways to make a very solid sorcerer build, especially if you're going dual class, which I never use, but there's plenty who do. And the Dragonblood one is absolutely perfect. It has a lot of spells that you can use, like True Strike and Haste are absolutely amazing. True Strike, unlike in 5th edition, is just a really good spell. It makes it you more accurate, and it's something that if you're using melee strikes with, especially with their focus spell, which is Dragon Claw, you're going to be using it a lot, getting your AC bonus a lot, and it's a really good effect. Also, Haste is a really good spell, and you can give the effect to someone else on your team, like the fighter who's already tanking. It's just a really good set of spells, and they have some other ones as well that do work, but True Strike and Haste, I believe, are one of the ones you use the most often. Elemental Bloodline is okay. I mean, it's good. It gives you a +1 status bonus to intimidation checks, which is okay if that's what you're building for, especially if you're using actions in tandem with your spells, like using a spell and then demoralizing that turn. A really good option you can do. But we're all here for the damage, right? Damage is really big, and Elemental is perfect for that, because for all of your granted spells and for your focus spells, which most of the focus spells from Elemental are attack spells, you can add an additional damage per spell level of either fire for fire damage or bludgeoning for all other types of elemental damage. This is really good. It depends on which elemental line you pick. Obviously, you can even add something like fire to water or electric spells if you have the fire, if you have like the fire elemental line. Sorry, space there for a second. It's really solid, and it can help even trigger weaknesses because it just adds the damage on top, and if it matches the type of damage of the spell, then it adds before applying weaknesses, which just makes it overall really good and makes Elemental Bloodline one of the highest damaging bloodlines just at base. Imperial is one I really like, and I think it's another hidden OP similar to the Angelic one. You get a +1 to all skill checks for a round, you or an ally. Now, this is really good, especially matched with a lot of the focus spells from the Imperial Bloodline. But you can also do this really easy in combat because they have Magic Missile on their spell list, which is a variable time spell, which you can do a single action Magic Missile, run over, and use that bonus to the skill check to do something that you need to do. This gives you a lot of variability on your turns, gives you a lot more options on what you should be doing, and gives you that really good bonus as well. I love the Imperial Bloodline, and I like a lot of its focus spells. It's something I recommend everyone check out. Now, I did mention some of the focus spells from some of the lines before, but each bloodline comes with 3 spells, and if I went into each of them, we would never get through this video in the time slot I tried to try to fit. Haha. But I'm going to talk about some of my favorite focus spells. Again, go check them out on Archive of Nethys. There's a lot of really fun ones. Dragon Claws is a very good Draconic bloodline or Worm-blooded bloodline. It's a really solid one. It gives you claws that do a D4 slashing damage and a D6 elemental damage depending on the type of dragon that you pick. Really good for that melee style sorcerer build. It's a very solid one. Plus, because these claws are unarmed attacks, hand wraps or mighty blows obviously increase them. You can add property runes to them, though it does not increase the elemental damage. But as you level up, the elemental damage automatically improves as the spell heightens. It's really good for that spell. Plus, when you cast it that round, you get a bonus to your AC. It's a very solid spell, and I really recommend that if you are going with a melee sorcerer build, try out the Dragon Claws. I think it's really good. Elemental Toss is a really good spell to add on top of what the elemental bloodline already gives. It's a great ranged spell strike. I think it's like an action to do. It does a D8 and heightens as you level up. It's really solid. Plus, on top of that, it also applies the elemental bloodline blood magic, which is you add an additional point per spell level, which makes it a very solid spell. It's really good, and it just does extra damage. There's nothing really to go wrong with it, honestly. Angelic Wings. And now I'm starting to realize I picked a lot of spells from the bloodlines I showed earlier. That was not necessarily intentional. They're just the ones that spoke out to me, and I obviously didn't pick one from each of them. But Angelic Wings is really good. It's the earliest way a character can fly in the game. Now, you can only fly for, 3 rounds, which is about 18 seconds. But even outside of combat, that's huge. The earliest fly spell is level 4. This one you can get at level 3. It's very solid and, well, as a 3rd level spell, I should say. So at level, 6, I would say. It's very solid, and flight really early helps significantly. 3 rounds in combat is a long time, and staying that far out of combat for that long, especially if you have extra focus points, is really solid. But outside of combat, you can get to places your teammates just can't get to. It's a really good spell, and eventually it does just get as much time as the fly spell does as it gets heightened. So I think it's a really good spell. Steel Shadow is really awesome, but I picked it more as a meme than anything. One of the things that you do is you use this spell, you grapple their shadow, and you pull it off of someone. Even if they succeed, they get enfeebled 1 for a round, which is good. It reduces their damage and possibly even their attack roll, depending on the kind of weapons they use. But the thing I love the most is that you can just Homer Simpson style strangle the shadow to do more damage. The spell innately does 3d4 negative damage when you use it, but you can sustain it as long as they failed to check every round and keep throttling them at a basic fortitude saving throw, which means you can continuously just deal damage to them. And let me double check my notes here. I don't know if you can sustain it multiple times in a round, but still, just being able to throttle someone's shadow for a single action every round, do some extra negative damage, and the spell does more negative damage as it gets heightened. It's a really good spell, and honestly, it makes you a very big target. So, if you want to play that taunt sorcerer build, Shadow Magic's the way to go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into feats real quick here. I know we're already kind of pulling on the video. There's 2 major feats that make the sorcerer really unique compared to the other spellcasters. There's the meta magic feats, which I know other spellcasters get, but sorcerers get more. On top of that, there are the evolution feats, where they actually change their magics in some way. Where I'm just going to go over some of my favorites from both of these categories because I think they're really great. Energy Fusion is a really interesting spell. It lets you adjust the elemental damage a spell might do by expending a secondary spell slot. taking that spell, whatever spell you have at that level, and adding the spell level to the damage of the spell, plus splitting the spell damage. Now, at base, it doesn't really seem that good because you're essentially using another spell slot for way less damage than that spell slot would do. But since Sorcerer has so many spell slots, Energy Fusion's really good because you're just not likely to use all your spell slots in a fight. So being able to add extra damage just means that you're utilizing spell slots you're probably not even going to use, honestly. On top of that, it's a good way to apply a weakness to a creature. Say you're fighting like a scarecrow golem or something, and you're using a elemental spell that does like water damage, but doesn't do anything to the scarecrow golem, right? Well, you can take like a fireball, slap it on there, do some extra damage, and it will apply the creature's weakness on top of it, making the spell do even more damage than the slots you put onto it. It's really good, really solid, and honestly, I think a very underutilized meta magic. Intrawave Dispel is perfect for those who want to just mess up enemy spellcasters. Every time, or well, not every time, obviously, when you apply the meta magic to a spell, you can attempt to strip an enemy using the counteract level of the spell level that you cast with the Dispel magic. It's really good. It can help remove some very annoying buffs from an enemy. They do have to be hit by the spell or fail the saving throw for the spell. So there is that kind of risk to it, but I think it's a really good way to just establish magical dominance by not even needing to dispel their magic by using spell slots, but instead just applying dispelling magic onto your onto your spells already. I think it's a very solid choice. The evolutions. Now, there's actually a lot of evolutions. I'm actually going to talk about the bases that apply to the traditions, but please go check out more on Archive of Nethys. I know I keep hyping them up. I'm not paid by them. I don't even think you can. They do make any money. They're just an available source, vetted by Paizo. But still, it doesn't really matter. Go check it out. They're really awesome. Arcane Evolution is absolutely amazing. It makes your probably Imperial Bloodline spellcaster even better. You get a spell book that you can write spells into like a wizard can, and then at the beginning of the day, you can add one of those spells to your repertoire, giving you more spell diversity. Or if you already know the spell, or it's already in your repertoire, I should say, you can make another one of your spells a signature spell, giving you that much more flexibility with your spells, allowing you, essentially, if you don't know what a signature spell is, you can cast it. I'm sorry, I'm talking so fast, it's causing me to burp. You can cast it at any spell level that spell can be heightened to. It's a really good feature, and it just gives your arcane spellcasters more flexibility than other sorcerers standardly. Divine Evolution, it's really good. You know why? Because it gives you a spell slot at your highest level for the heal or harm spell. You can either do more damage or heal people, and if you're taking the Angelic bloodline, which I highly recommend, the heal spell you get from the slot applies that +1 to saving throws that I mentioned before, making the Angelic bloodline even better with the Divine Evolution. And plus, you're just getting an extra spell slot at your highest level. You're just always going to have an extra big heal or an extra big harm in your pocket for when you need it. There's nothing wrong with it, and that's an amazing get for just one feat. Occult Evolution, I think, is really cool. You become trained in an additional skill, which is really good, especially if you're not playing a very smart sorcerer, which is a somewhat common archetype. But on top of that, you can spend a minute once per day to get any mental spell and put it from the occult spell list, I should say, any mental spell, and just slot it into your repertoire for the day. It's really good. It's very diverse, and it's amazing in roleplay situations where you need a spell like suggestion, charm, whatever, to get through a certain situation, and you just don't have the spell in your repertoire. This allows you that flexibility to have it. And because you have that, you don't need to pick those more niche situation spells for your repertoire, making it harder to utilize all your spells. With this, you can just pick up the spell you need as you need it, or at least once per day. Well, you can pick the spell up. Obviously, you're a repertoire caster, so you can use as many as spell slots you have, which, again, is really awesome. Primal Evolution. We're getting to the end of this video. So sorry I went so long. Just Sorcerers got a lot. But Primal Evolution is great. It's similar to Divine Evolution. At your highest spell level, you get an extra slot for either summon animal or summon plant and fungus. And I'll tell you, a lot of the plants and fungus you can summon are actually really good. Definitely check out the list you can see there when you can summon. And not only that, because it's always at your highest spell level, the spell just gets better as you level. Again, a really good get for just a single feat. And summon spells are always good. They always add extra bodies on the battlefield and always give you just more actions, because as you sustain it every action, you command the creature. It's really a solid choice, and very thematic if you want to go with that heavy primal kind of sorcerer cast. That's it for the feats and the sorcerer video as a whole. So sorry the video took so long to come out, but things are back in order, so don't worry about that. Excuses, that was the word I was looking for earlier. I wasn't trying to make excuses. But I will say, Sorcerer has a lot more to offer than just those kinds of feats. They were just the ones I thought was the most unique to Sorcerer, and honestly, they're all really, really good. So go check them out. And if you really love playing a spellcaster, honestly, there's nothing really much more fun than a sorcerer. I mean, obviously, aesthetics aside, sorcerer just has a lot of magic to throw around, more than other spellcasters. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.